When you think of the film In the Heat of the Night, you immediately think of Quincy Jones, the guy who wrote the score.
In the Heat of the Night cement his reputation as a powerful dramatic composer, someone to be reckoned with in Hollywood, someone to be sought after.
In addition to this being a really well-written film, a well-directed film, the performances are extremely powerful. You have this added element of the sound rooted in the jazz tradition, which just really knocks it out of the box.
I became addicted to the idea of composing films, I guess, when I was 15 years old. And we used to play hooky, go to all the movie theaters for 11 cents. And it was almost a hopeless situation because there were no black composers' names on those screens.
For a black guy at that time to assume that he could come to Hollywood and score films because there's no, role model for this. This is just indicative of Quincy's, vision and his genius.
America was rough back then. We used to have a saying, is that not one drop of my self-worth depends on your acceptance of me. You had to, because you couldn't allow an external force to be the one to identify you. You couldn't do that, or you'd be in trouble.
He was the one that really opened up the whole film scoring scene for African-American composers.
With all of the things we dreamed, we achieved. We believed it, and we achieved it.
At the time, jazz was very controversial. It was not something that was considered high art like we consider jazz now.
It got a lot of attention from the hip people, and young people paid attention to jazz.
But in the 60s, jazz in a lot of ways was sort of like hip-hop is now. Its energy, the persona around it, the images of various figures, Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane. Quincy taps into all that, and he brings that vibe of coolness to the film.
When Quincy did The Pawnbroker, his first American film, he was thought of as a jazz guy, even though he was orchestrally trained and could write and arrange orchestral music as well as anybody working at that time.
People forget that he went to Paris to study with Nadia Boulanger, who also taught a lot of great American composers. He had sort of gone through something similar to what Virgil Tibbs had gone through in the Heat of the Night. He was hired to score a movie called Mirage, and the producer came out and saw that he was black.
And they didn't know I was black, so they were almost ready to send me home. And then Mancini said, "Man, get in the 20th century."
Henry Mancini had great amount of respect for Quincy Jones. So he told him, this man, he's gonna do an excellent job. He can do anything you want him to do.
When In the Heat of the Night came along in 1967, he'd only been in Hollywood for about 2 years. This was about his 6th film in Hollywood.
I went to Quincy and I said, I want you to score the film, Quincy, and I really think you can find, you got the soul for it.
And that was like magic, Norman just clicked right away.
Quincy said, doing this movie, In the Heat of the Night, and would you write it with me? We have a few songs to write, one for Ray Charles. We said, absolutely.
So the three of them got together. Quincy wrote a little tune, a melodic line, In the Heat of the Night. Ba-ba-dee-dee, da-da-dee. He wrote that. They went back and wrote a lyric to it.
In the heat of the night.
It sets the tone for the movie you're going to see. You see that train come toward you and you hear that great soulful voice of Ray Charles.
Ray and I started together at 14 and 16, and when we were kids in Seattle in the 40s, like 47, 48, and it was smoking now. I mean, we had 3 gigs a night, every night.
I think that it was more than a marriage made in heaven. I mean, I think this was the ideal collaboration of a composer and a vocalist on a film song.
The day when we went down to Ray's West Washington Boulevard recording studio to play the song for him, I remember what Ray said after
Quincy sang it.
Quincy sat at the piano and sang it.
Yeah.
And then Ray said, "That's the maximum greens."
And I thought, what does that mean? Ray Charles was so hip, I never knew what he was talking about.
When he said that's maximum greens, he meant like mustard and collard greens, you know, like some soul food, you know.
He meant it was...
He liked it a lot.
It's good.
Music plays an important part in all of our lives, and especially in a small southern town. They've always got kind of a country western thing going, and they got music going all the time.
He didn't want source material to be pre-recorded music because he felt that if the audience heard a song that they were familiar with, it would take them out of the drama.
So I said, what if we write all the songs? What if you do all the background songs, and the Bergmans will write some lyrics, and we'll have all these little snatches and to intersperse between the dramatic score. So Quincy agreed, so we went and we did that.
Well, a bow-legged Pollyanna knock-kneed Paul. A bow-legged Pollyanna knock-kneed Paul. A bow-legged Pollyanna knock-kneed Paul.
He said, pick the radio station that this particular cop would have on when he's patrolling the city at night.
Yes, for that policeman, we wrote a song called The Bow-Legged Pollyanna Knock-Kneed Paul, which Glenn Campbell recorded.
This is the kind of music that Sam would have been listening to. It helps to sort of illuminate the character.
The person who you discover is the murderer is a short order cook, and he has a jukebox in his diner, and he wanted us to write a song that would reflect his character.
That's got kind of a novelty tune, Halloween kind of quality, but perfect, again, for Ralph, who's playing the song. Better to have the songs written by your composer and your lyricists. That way, not only can you control the tone and the mood of the songs, again, helping to illuminate character, but you also own them.
A score paints the psyche of a movie. That's the soul of a movie. We call it emotion lotion.
As Q said, science and soul is what goes into film scoring.
The soul is the creating of the music for the various characters, the city, the mood, the tone. The science is the most tedious part about it.
If you want to catch a particular moment on film where there's a cut to an object, for example, the director wants something to emphasize that, you know, a hit point, we call it. You didn't just guess at it.
It's going to start at a particular cue point and end at a particular cue point. So you have to do all your composing within this 1 minute and 10-second time frame, and that is the science.
It's science in the sense that you have to mathematically figure out where that was going to be using this book and using a formula. That was a formula that we had to use. Today, you don't have to do that. You don't need the book. The music software that you can use for composing, it has everything built in.
There's a scene in the middle of the film where Gillespie and Virgil are driving through the cotton fields. Quincy had written a piece of music for that scene, which was actually thrown out because it was thought of as somewhat aggressive.
I don't get any joy out of seeing the cotton field. I just went with what was happening now. It didn't work because it was too angry. Norman thought it was too angry, you know.
The way he writes, he has a sense of what he wants the viewer to focus on. And I'm sure that comes about as a result of his conversations with the director.
None of that for you, huh, Virgil?
When they got to the bridge, we killed all the tonality and just went. So Steiger said, I got him.
Okay, I got him.
Slowly starts to drive, you know. We took the same tempo of the cue before that and just cut it straight down to percussion instruments.
It's not only percussive, but he used Don Elliott, who's a very good musician in New York, old friend of Quincy's, who does lip noises and breathing sounds.
Another aspect of Quincy Jones's different take on scoring films in that era was the fact that he would cast his bands, his orchestras, just as a director would cast his film.
Man, that's what I do. That's what I do. You know, I can't drive a car, but I know of who does what, how they do it, and how they do it as a collective group, and so forth. That's what I do.
In the case of In the Heat of the Night, it was a real all-star band. Bobby Scott on tack piano, Rahsaan Roland Kirk on flute, Ray Brown on bass, Billy Preston on organ, the great Toots Thielemans on harmonica, Carol Kaye on Fender bass. Mike Post, who would later go on as a career of television theme writing, is playing guitar on the score.
And musicians would show up for Quincy. They love playing for Quincy because, as Dizzy Gillespie once said, he knows what he's doing.
He engenders in everybody a feeling of love.
I don't know that you can talk to anybody who, when you mention Quincy's name, doesn't smile.
In the Heat of the Night was a powerful film in its time, and it's a powerful film today.
And the masterful score that Quincy wrote that was so powerful just brought attention of jazz and blues in films to the public in an extremely powerful way.
If somebody calls Quincy Jones a musical genius, they are telling the absolute, unadulterated truth, because he's truly a musical genius.
He's an amazing visionary. His vision is not just relegated to entertainment field and music. It's much bigger than that. He's a humanitarian. He's looking out for the planet. He's looking out for the future. And he's trying to do what he can to contribute to the advancement of society.
I feel very honored that I had a chance to be included in the company. That year, I remember Sidney Poitier came over. They said, Q, we've been starving a long time, and we did Heat of the Night together. He said, I think this is our time now. From here on in, we won't have to worry anymore. And he was right.